I think we can probably all agree that the most stylish thing a person can do is to repeat their outfits. Wear the looks that make you feel really good and that you put on and you just thought immediately, I need to wear this again. I've been having a lot of those moments recently, and it kind of inspired me to think about what it is that I find incredibly stylish in an outfit, both for myself and for others. So I thought today we could chat through 10 of the details that I think can really elevate an outfit and are not necessarily tied to trends, so more just an extension of the exploration of personal style. And this is something that I really love to unpack in my videos. I figured it would be rude of me not to be putting these into practice for what I'm wearing in this video, so the actual outfit I'm wearing now is one that I wore a couple of weeks ago and absolutely loved. Okay, so the very first one is excessive rings on the fingers. I know not everybody does this, but I'm quite expressive with my hands when I'm talking, so I'm constantly moving them around. And so I really like this because you kind of get these little flashes of embellishment, of adornment, and I think it's also a great way to play around with your personal style. I have a friend on Instagram, Laura, whose account is LB. I'm going to link her below, but she always has the most interesting ring stacks. They're kind of quite bold, chunky, and really playful and whimsical too. Personally, I tend to go for something that is either a little bit chunky and has stone embellishments to it, or fine jewelry that I layer and stack up so that I can create something that feels really kind of special and also just takes up a bit more room on the fingers and on the hand. And I think what's fun about this is that you can build it up over time, really intentionally adding special pieces into your collection and also mix and match your stack depending on what you're kind of wearing for the day and also just how much adornment you really are in the mood for. The next one is tonal dressing or monochromatic outfits that have a point of contrast. So thinking about a really light neutral colored outfit, pairing that with something that is really striking and bold or something that's quite deep and moody. I think this adds a lot of depth to an outfit, and it's also a really simple way to play around with color. A great option for those who are a little bit more color averse, but you can always do the reverse. You could go for a really bold, kind of colorful statement monochromatic outfit and then temper it with something that is considered more of a neutral. But then the focus is actually shifted more towards your outfit rather than that point of contrast. And I think that that can be a fun way to play around and explore your sense of style. And hopefully I will be able to illustrate this in so many different ways with pictures from the internet and also just with some of my own styling. But I think this is also a really simple way to pull off that effortlessly chic look without much effort. I know that maxi bags are currently trending, but I think that there is nothing more chic than a small bag, something that feels really quite small, intentional, and is only going to fit the essentials. And I've found for me that part of this actually comes out of practicality. I don't tend to have a lot of things that I need to pack away in my bag for day to day. If I was to whittle it down to the bare bones, it would be my cell phone, my wallet, my keys, and probably a lipstick, though I don't always have one on me. So really, I don't need a large bag because anything else that I want to bring with me is many times surplus to requirement. That is obviously going to be different if it's the tail end of the week or the weekend when I've got my kids with me and I do actually need a larger bag then. And I guess if I'm to dig into why I actually love the look of a small bag, I think part of this comes back to that idea of contrast and juxtaposition. In the wintertime, we're wearing these really long kind of dramatic coats. We're wearing chunky knits. We might be wearing pants that have a little bit more volume to them. So a small bag can be a really simple way to bring that balance back into the outfit. And I personally just think that they are so cute, kind of dinky in a way. And yeah, I'll share with you a few of my personal favorites from my own wardrobe, ones that I find do the most and are quite impactful. A great way to kind of add in that visual interest is to seek out designs that have a little bit of a tactile quality to them, some sort of texture, because that adds dimension and is one of those elements that will make outfits feel interesting. Looking at my list, I can see a lot of them are linked back to accessories, which kind of makes sense because these are the finishing touches, the garnishes to an outfit. So one of the other details that I find really quite stylish is to fasten your cardigans using a brooch like I've done here. Things I like about this are that one, it adds that sense of adornment. Two, it also creates a bit of an off-center element which feels more unusual, unexpected, and I personally don't think that this is contrived, especially when it has a functional use. For example, this is actually an open cardigan, so it doesn't have any buttons down the front. If I want to wear it shut like I have done here, I need to use a brooch in order to achieve that. But also it kind of gives you a little bit more of a waisted effect, which I find quite flattering and can be that thing that brings in a sense of balance to your outfits, especially with what I'm wearing right now. It is a tailored full length trouser. So using that brooch as a tool, I'm able to define my waist. I think there's so many different ways that you could use a brooch to kind of fasten your knitwear. You could also place it over the buttonholes if that was something that you were so inclined to do. And I also think that that's a really chic thing to do with some of your summer clothing. For example, if you had a vest, one of those linen vests, you could either fasten the brooches or clip on earrings over the top of each buttonhole, and I think that would create a really unique look. So this next one really depends on the specific styling scenario, but I feel like if you've got longer hair and you're wearing something that comes quite high up around the neck, tucking your hair in so it becomes sort of a styling piece is really chic, really, really stylish. I love this particularly with a turtleneck, with a really kind of high collar coat, even just pulling your hair back so that you expose a little bit more of your neck and your face. I think that this is just a really fresh way to approach styling and thinking about our outfit and the way that we dress and present ourselves as a whole. This might be an unpopular opinion, or at least it's not something I think I've heard anyone say before, but I do believe that the way that we style our hair actually does have the same sort of impact on an outfit as a good pair of shoes. So it's one of the reasons why I'm typically tending to think about that as well as a tool. So you can really use it to create balance in your outfit, and especially when you do have a bit more bulk around the neck, if you have your hair out and loose and quite voluminous like mine is right now, it's really going to accentuate that. And that's why in these instances, tucking it in or even just kind of slicking it back in a low bun adds an extreme amount of polish and balance to the overall look. This is a specific one which I think many people may not like. It really depends on if you're into that kind of eased out, oversized look, but I love a relaxed jacket, something that kind of cocoons you and feels like a bit of a big hug, has a little bit more length maybe through the body, or even a sculptural sleeve. These can be that piece that bring an entire outfit together and instantly elevate, update, upgrade a really minimal look, especially if you are someone who tends to go for more classic silhouettes. Just one item like that can instantly change and shift the entire mood. Part of my inclination towards these sorts of jackets comes down to the visual lines that I'm trying to create in my own outfits. And for you, this might look really different, and you might prefer maybe a crop jacket, a full length jacket, something that's a little bit more slim fitting, especially on the sleeves. But for me, this is something that I find visually really fun to play around with, and we can instantly bring balance back into our look by thinking about the other styling components. So bringing in those slim elements, whether it's by exposing some of the arm and also wearing a slimmer underlayer, but also opting for a shoe that has a really sleek silhouette and profile to it. So typically I tend to wear things like this with more of a pointed toe shoe, or I'm making sure that I'm exposing some of my arm or even a little bit of the ankle. Talking about ankles feels like a nice segue into my next point, which is socks that show. And I think, again, this is just a fun way to really express your personality and play around with style, but in a way that feels very low risk, because socks as a part of your outfit are probably one of the more affordable elements that you're bringing into it. And they're quite easy to switch in, alternate through. So I really adore kind of a sheer sock mesh little tight situation that you can wear with a heel, a Mary Jane, or even a loafer. And this looks great when you've got more of a cropped pant, or maybe you've got a skirt that sits just on the ankle so you have a little bit of the leg showing. This is another tool that we can use to bring texture into our outfits, especially in the colder months, but it can be a great way to kind of add in that colorful pop, bring in that contrast component that I was talking about with one of my earlier points of things that I find really stylish. So you could do a really bright colored sock paired back with more of a neutral outfit. And that, again, it just feels very low stakes, very approachable. And I think when we are exploring the boundaries of our personal style, things like that do feel quite easy to achieve or pull off are going to be the ones that we are more likely to actually try and put into practice, especially when there's a lot of color trends kind of floating about. If you compare that to buying a clothing item in a trending color, that is going to be a much higher cost. It's going to be a bigger piece of your wardrobe budget for the season. And that's why I think socks, sheer, mesh, great way to play around with style and something that I always find really intriguing and quite eye-catching. Another one that I think will be quite Marmite, but I really love kind of oversized slouchy knits paired with a silky trouser. To me, this is just kind of the perfect melting pot of textures. It feels really dynamic. You have the sheen of the pants, and that's tempered by the matte fuzzy quality of your knitwear. And I think the proportions here aren't really what I'm that focused on. I think a little cardigan that sort of ends around the waistband of your trousers is great. Even an oversized relaxed knit is great, but just something that has a little bit of ease to it. And I think part of this comes down to wanting to feel comfortable in our clothing, but also add in those elements of polish, which a silk pant is instantly going to do that. And there's always little styling tweaks that we can do to update, elevate, refine our outfit. So revealing some of the arms, thinking about the jewelry that we're wearing, how we're styling our hair. Maybe we've got a fun lip on, maybe we're wearing a pointed toe shoe, which is definitely my preference, but I love it. I think that it's a great way to bring fluidity into your outfit as well, which can really elongate the silhouette and make you visually appear a little bit taller. It's definitely something that I've been loving, and it's kind of started to form part of my style uniform for the current season. That's actually another thing I find really stylish. It kind of lends to that idea of outfit repeating I mentioned at the very start of this video, but having a style uniform or a signature look is something I personally find so stylish. And the reason being is that it tells me you know yourself. You have found your style, you know what you like, and you don't feel a need to kind of play around, explore, and experiment because you've settled on what it is that you feel really good in. And I've said this before, but when you feel good in your clothing, it really shows. You feel more confident, you feel more at ease in what you're wearing. And I do think that there is definitely a difference between things that we love and things that we feel good in. You can love something, but maybe not feel good in it. And then you can be wearing something that makes you feel really good. Maybe it's not necessarily the most flattering thing, but you really enjoy having those clothes on your body and they're filling you up with that mood, the way you want to express yourself for the day. The final thing that I think is really stylish right now is definitely more of a trend element, and that is those elongated organic necklaces. There are a few brands that I think are doing this really well, and I'll be sure to link some of my favorites down below, but this definitely feels like it's kind of harking from that era of 90s minimalism, especially in the way that I've often seen it styled and the way that I like to kind of incorporate this into my own outfits. But it is a great way to play around with balance and something I'm often recommending to styling clients, especially those who are a bit bustier and want to kind of minimize or draw attention away from their bust, is if you want to wear a crew neck tee, which is always going to create a sense of width across the chest, balance it out with a longer necklace because that is going to draw the eye down and bring in that illusion that you get from a V-neck top, which is really flattering on kind of women who have a bigger bosom, at least more so than I have. But I really love this, and it kind of almost feels like a connection to my mum because she had a lot of those sort of stone necklaces that she wore when I was a child, and I tend to kind of associate them with her. And as many of you may know, she passed away a decade ago, so I'm often looking for little ways that I can connect myself to her through style and using that as a form of expression. So those are the things that I personally find really stylish right now. I want to know what you're finding stylish, whether it's something that's trending or not, something that you're doing or that you see others do. Share down in the comments below. I feel like this could be a really fun chat, and I'm just curious to know what it is that you are enjoying at the moment. Thank you so much for spending some of your day with me. If you did like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're new. If you want to see more from me, I share a lot of styling advice, how to remix your wardrobe, and brand reviews. Anyway, that's it from me. I will see you next time with a brand new video. Enjoy the week ahead. See you soon. Bye.